All right, folks, welcome into another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Facebook. Just search 901 Soccer and we'll pop right up. You can also find Bluff City Media, as the 901 Soccer Podcast is and has been part of Bluff City Media for several months now. You can find Bluff City Media on Twitter at BluffCity_media. And you can find them on Facebook. Just search Bluff City Media. And if you're listening to this in the audio-only version, this podcast is available on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search Bluff City Media. 901 Soccer Podcast will be in there somewhere. Or you can just search 901 Soccer Podcast. But definitely go ahead. What do all the YouTube people say? Like, comment, and subscribe. If you all want to do that, you're not going to hear me complain about it. So what do we got in store for you tonight? Real quick turnaround after the win over the Tampa Bay Rowdies earlier in the week on Wednesday night. This is now a Saturday night following a 1-0 home loss to Monterey Bay FC. And this one, we're not talking long, mainly because there's really not a whole lot to say. I think my post-game interview with Coach Glass tonight was 1 minute and 57 seconds. But also because I am absolutely dog-tired. I had, worked my regular job. I also, today at Mike Rose, refereed 5 games. I have to get up and do 5 games down there tomorrow. 4 games down there tomorrow. See, my brain's cooked. So I am just a little bit wore out, so we're just going to keep this short and not so sweet. Maybe talk about how we moved from the Tampa game into tonight's game, talk about tonight's game, and then this is actually going to be shocking to many of you, either short-time or long-time listeners / viewers of the program. I'm going to talk about my disappointment with the referee crew tonight. I did it a little bit in the Orange County game, maybe. Fairly one of the last 4 home games. That does encompass a stretch of about 2.5 months because this is only like the 3rd time they've been at home since July. But I don't remember which game it was, but I was somewhat critical of the refereeing, and you guys know me. That's not something that I like to do, but I do think there needs to be a little bit of discussion about the way that this game tonight was refereed, specifically and especially the first half. I thought he had a much better second half than he did the first half, but we'll get to that. That's probably what we'll close the show out with. So we'll just talk. Let's just get right into it. So Wednesday night, you go down 1-0 at home to Tampa. You tie it up 1-1. Then you go down 2-1 again. Then you tie it up at 2. Tampa's coach gets himself tossed out the game. And then you win 3-2. Which, by the way, I discovered today, per someone in the Tampa Bay Rowdies Twitter universe, that the reason regular head coach Nicky Law was not there is he is apparently out of the country with some visa issues, which are supposedly fairly close to being resolved, but that explains his absence from AutoZone Park on Wednesday night. I do wonder if Nicky Law had been there, if Tampa would have run wide ass open up 2-1 with 5 minutes left in the game, during which time they conceded 2 goals and got their coach tossed out. I also do wonder if Nicky Law would have been smart enough to, once he was cautioned and shown a yellow card, to not kick a water bottle 35 yards across the field, which was a topic of discussion today in the press box, where I had missed it. I was busy tweeting that he'd been given the yellow and heard everybody else, so I thought he just kept running his mouth. No, as it turns out, he decided to kick a water bottle, which several people that visibly saw it with their eyeballs were like, no, it was because he kicked a water bottle. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Kind of dumb, but it's kind of cool. It's not just me. But anyway, so you move from Wednesday night, and after Wednesday night, Wednesday was the game you felt like you probably had the worst chance of winning. And you got all 3 points out of that. So when you get through your toughest game with 3 points, and you've got 2 games remaining in your 3-game homestand against Monterey and Hartford, you start to think, Monterey's won 1 game since July. And Hartford is just, they are an absolute travesty. They are the easy game at this level. I don't know that 901 FC has ever lost to Hartford. I know even in 2019, when things were not going so good for 901 FC, they beat Hartford 3 times that year. Once at home, once on the road, and once out at Mike Rose in the Open Cup. That was the Jochengraff 2-goals game. Also, my favorite thing about that game is that Memphis was celebrating its whatever year anniversary of its founding in 1819, and that night at Mike Rose, there were 1,819 people in the stadium. I don't know if somebody was cooking the books or if that's legitimately what it was. Regardless, I think it's fantastic. So when you get through your toughest game against Tampa and you've got all 3 points in the win, and then you look at the next 2 games against teams who are not that good, you start to feel pretty good about getting 9 points out of a possible 9 in your 3-game homestand. That would be even better than that 3-game homestand at the end of June, where I said I felt like if you got 7 out of 9 points, you'd be able to feel really good about this team. And 7 out of 9 and 9 out of 9 are out the window after tonight, unfortunately. It just, it was a game where right out of the gate, 901 FC came out guns blazing. They came out, they were playing with their collective hair on fire, as the saying goes. And they got a lot of chances, a lot of half chances. Rodrigo da Costa had probably in the 2nd or 3rd minute, he let it rip from 19 yards out and forced a really good save from Herrera in the Monterey goal. And this was sitting up there in the press box. It felt like the way that Monterey was defending, it was like what's the word that I'm looking for? They were defending for their lives. It was desperate defending. A lot of good balls that were just at the last second deflected, or somebody just got a touch to it, or just went a touch. Like it was like so close so many times. And after about 25 minutes, it occurred to me, I was like, you know what? If they get a goal, if 901 FC gets a goal, Monterey may just say, you know what? We're not playing well right now. Our run of form in this game, coming into this game, has been horrendous. We may just hit the F it button and go on down the road. But then a more unpleasant thought found its way into my brain right about the same time and said, the flip side to that is what happens if 901 FC doesn't get the goal? It's when you let a team that thinks they don't belong hang around, they tend to take advantage of your inability to put them away. And whether it's by hook, by crook, by whatever, if you struggle to put teams away, they come back and bite you in the butt. And that's what happened. 30 minutes into the game, really kind of out of nowhere, Monterey comes down. They're in the box. They've had like 1/2 chance the whole game thus far. And there's a handball on Akeem Ward. And I'm in the press box going, that's a handball. Crap. And nothing happens. Okay. Awesome. No penalty. That looks like I was halfway through typing out Memphis gets away with one there, ... And before I could finish the dot after ... points to the spot, blows the whistle. Thinking nothing else happened. And we're going to touch on this later. We're going to touch on this more in depth later in the show. But that was something that I found somewhat bizarre. I don't have a problem with it being a penalty because it was very obvious to me that it was. The issue that I have is why the 20-second wait. And we'll talk about that later. But in any case, 901 FC concedes the penalty, and Monterey converts the penalty. So now you're thinking, well, crap. Is this going to take the win completely out of Memphis's sails? It didn't. But as you got into the second half, this is where the game got immensely frustrating. Club record tonight in both shots and shots on goal, and you were held scoreless. That is immensely frustrating. This felt like a early season 2019 game without the joy of the chances ever actually having a chance. Because what this was, in essence, was there's always, in more so in college basketball than the pros, but there's always that one team that for whatever reason will just it's what's the old saying? You live by the three, you die by the three. Where if you can make however many threes in a game, but when you go cold, and you start building a city out of bricks. That's what 901 FC was doing tonight. It was particularly frustrating when balls would get sent into the box, and either Fernandez or DaCosta or Lapa, between the 6 and the penalty spot, instead of trying to turn and shoot, I said Luis Fernando, my mistake. Instead of at the penalty spot turning and trying to shoot on goal, they would head the ball down away from the goal to somebody 6 yards outside of the penalty box, who then would try to shoot. Now, long-range shots look great when they go in, but there's a reason teams typically let you shoot from there, because it's not, as they say in basketball, it's not a high percentage shot. And that was the bulk of 901 FC's chances in the second half. Just slightly contested 30-yard shots from outside of the box. And there weren't very many of them that had a lot of mustard on them. A lot of slow rollers. So while Herrera's stat sheet looks nice because he got 7 or 8 saves, a lot of those were just right to him. They didn't trouble. There was one in the second half where Fernando tried to curl it in, and he did have to go like that to make the save, but it wasn't full stretch. It wasn't panic mode. They had it on lockdown. They were doing the exact opposite of what Tampa did on Wednesday night, where Tampa, like I mentioned earlier, was running wide open, pedal to the metal, up 2-1, like Brazil against Croatia at the World Cup last November. Monterey did the opposite. They were they were there to bunker from the start, and then they built an entire bunker complex in the second half. And we did not have Willem Dafoe as Staff Sergeant Elias as the tunnel rat to go clean out the tunnel, the bunker complex. We didn't have that. So as a result, 901 FC loses 1-0. Where does that put you now? You are very much behind the 8 ball in terms of getting a home playoff game. You still have games in hand. You're still well within the playoff places. You're still in 5th place, or if you maybe down to 6th, but you're still well within the playoff places with games in hand. So on that front, it's not panic time, but you're going to need some help, and you're going to need a really good run of form. Now, if you recall, all is not lost on the home playoff game front. That's not what I'm saying. You're just behind the 8 ball now, and you've got a lot of work to do, and your margin for error in that regard is pretty much gone. But if you will recall, Wednesday night in the postgame, I said, look, this is the turning point of the season. This is this team's version of the 2021 Birmingham game. I still believe that. Well, but Lawrence, how can you say this is the turning point and the mirror image of the 2021 Birmingham game if they came out and lost 1-0 to a team outside of the playoff places in the Western Conference? Not so fast, my friend. If you will recall, Memphis, 901 FC, the following week or the following home game after the Birmingham game, played host to Miami FC, and they lost. I think it was 2-0. You know what? I'm going to actually look that up right now. I'm pretty sure they lost 2-0. I know it was against Miami. Yep. September 4th, they beat the Birmingham Legion 3-2. Then the very next game on the 11th, they lose to Miami FC 2-0. From there, it was smooth sailing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 wins in their last 11 games after that Birmingham game. After the Miami game, as a matter of fact. So that's still possible here for 901 FC. 901 FC after tonight has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games left. And 3 of those are at home. You got Hartford at home on September 16th, Birmingham at home on the 30th, El Paso Locomotive on October the 7th. And your road games are at Birmingham on the 20th, at the Rowdies on the 23rd, and at New Mexico United on the 13th. So you can still, like I said, with 6 games left, you're still well within the playoff places. Now, you can't afford to just go in the tank again like you did in June, but a dropped point here or there is not the end of the world in terms of just making the playoff. But if you want a home playoff game, you got to win your 3 home games. You got to get 9 points from your 3 remaining home games, and then you probably need to pick up at least 3 more points. You probably need to pick up at least 6. You probably need to win 5 out of your next 6 if you want to get into the top 4 to host a home playoff game. And that's going to be tough. Birmingham twice. That's going to be tough. But you should come home on the 16th. Well, come home. They've already been home on the 16th for the Hartford game. That should be release of frustration. That's in other sports, that's what they call a get right game. That Hartford game needs to be a get right game. That needs to be 3-0 at the half, 5-0 at the final whistle. I don't know what the goal difference looks like. That's something I could probably pull up, but I'm really tired and I don't feel like it. But not a disaster. Tonight stunk. There's no way to put that. Tonight stunk. It was immensely and incredibly frustrating. There are no 2 ways about that. Stephen Glass would be the first one to tell you that. Well, I don't know if he told you that, but he essentially told me that. It's not over. They're still in the playoff places. That's good. Work to do on getting a home playoff game. That's really the main takeaway from tonight, is that you're behind the 8 ball now if you want a home playoff game. It's not out of the question, but you probably need at least 4, maybe 5 wins in your last 6 games. You got to get 9 points from your remaining 3 home games. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about, I mentioned it in the open, talked about it a little bit in that Monterey discussion, is the refereeing tonight. Not good. There wasn't any one real disaster. There were, or as they say, KMIs, key match incidents. There were, I'm sure the whoever is assessing or assigning or grading or coaching or whatever found some KMIs, some key match incidents. But there wasn't any one specific decision from the referee that just threw the game out of whack or cost 901 FC. It was more of a death by 1,000 paper cuts type of scenario. The first note that I have here, the penalty that was called on Akeem Ward. Like I said a minute ago, ball came in, looked fairly obvious to me to be a handball. So I'm like, crap, that's a penalty. Everybody else in there will tell you. I sat there and said, oh, that's a penalty. And then nothing happened. And I'm like, why? Okay. And then play goes on for 15, 20, 25 seconds. And I'm like, oh, they're out of the woods. Okay. Woohoo, dodged a bullet. And like I said, I was halfway through typing out Memphis dodged a bullet, Memphis caught a break, something like that. And then all of a sudden, I see the referee start going like this, boop, to the spot. I'm thinking, well, nothing else happened. There wasn't another handball. Memphis, at the top of they were in the circle at the top of the 18 going out with it. What happened? Boop. And I thought, surely he's not pointing to the spot for the handball on Akeem Ward. And sure enough, I think he was pointing to the spot on the handball on Akeem Ward. Now, yes, clear handball. Obvious penalty. Big problem with the 20 to 30 second wait. Big problem with that. Very big problem with that. Call the penalty or don't. I get that we don't have VAR here. So there's no need for a big, long, let me think about it. Because then it looks like you don't know what you're doing. If I did that on a game where I was being assessed, I would get lit up for it. And I would be told, it looks like you don't know what you're doing. It looks like you don't know what the decision is. How do I know that's what I would be told? Because I've been told that before. So my thought process was, this is one of two things. Either A, the fourth official or the assistant referee is on his comm saying that's a handball, that's a handball, that's a handball. Why aren't you calling it? Why aren't you calling it? Aren't you calling it? Or B, he was trying to play advantage in the penalty area, which 99 times out of 100 you do not do. Unless it is so obvious where, yes, this dude just smacked the ball down with his hand, but he smacked it so hard it fell to the attacker over here who's so wide open and he buries it. That's like the 1 time out of 100 that you play advantage in the penalty area. But normally, you don't do that. So I kind of discounted that. I'm like, I don't know that he's playing advantage. Plus, there was no real... He also didn't signal. There's a signal. You can't really see because the camera's not set up, but there's 2 ways to signal advantage. There's the old school way where you go both arms like this, and the new school way, which is you go 1 arm like this. And he didn't do either of those. So I was like, I don't think that's advantage. And then I kind of discounted. I didn't figure the fourth official who's at midfield. So I yell at coaches for this all the time. I'm like, Coach, I'm 7 yards away from the play, and you're back here on the other side of midfield. There's no way you saw that better than I did. So I don't think the fourth official's in his ear telling him that. And I don't really think that the AR is either, because if the AR saw something, he's going to wave his flag and go to the corner flag. So I think it was just I don't know what he was doing, but it took 30 seconds too long. Call the penalty or don't call the penalty. If he calls it the minute that Akeem Ward handles it, I think there are no issues. I don't think there are any issues. So that was problem number 1 I had. Problem number 2 is fairly shortly after that penalty. 901FC is all the way down in front of the Terminix section out in right field. And there's just a fairly obvious bonk by a Monterey defender to play the ball. And I don't remember who it was that was down there for 901FC. It might have been Aiden McFadden. Is like just kind of stops because it was just so obvious. Like bonk, ball, hand, bonk. And neither the AR nor the referee stopped play. The AR did not signal to the referee to stop play, nor did the referee stop play. And I'm thinking, how do you miss that? And of course, everybody in the stands is going crazy, which you always have to take with a grain of salt, because when fans in this situation, or parents or coaches or whatever, say, well, that's the exact same thing. No, it usually isn't. In this instance, yes, it was the exact same thing. And then it got worse, because as Aiden McFadden, or whoever it was, has stopped, Monterey has taken off down the field, and they play a long ball. And whoever it was from Monterey is in one-on-one with Drew Romig, and luckily he wasn't particularly good. I think he was a defender. Luckily he's not good at scoring goals because he put it into the side netting. Romig was stranded, and he comes down. I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad. This missed handball leads to penalty and goal, and then missed handball leads to another goal. I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to be this dude at halftime. I'm calling for escorts to get off the field at halftime if this goes in. This is going to be bad. And I don't necessarily blame Aiden McFadden for going nuts like he did and getting the caution. That was the right move by the referee to show him the caution, because he was out of control. But I totally get why he was so upset, because it was blatant. It was what do they say? Clear and obvious. I don't think anybody's trying to relitigate the game. That was, if ever there was a need, a encapsulation of the need for VAR at this level, that was it. I don't really think we need VAR at this level because they can't get it right at any of the other levels. So different discussion for a different day. So that was the second thing that really bothered me. And then the third thing, and these may not be in order, but right at about midfield, some point in the first half, Aaron Molloy got fouled. The referee called the foul. Okay, cool. And Molloy sets the ball down to take a quick free kick. But Molloy is going towards the goal. The defender is between him and the goal. And because the dude's only like 2 yards away, even though he's not supposed to be, we all know how players are. Everybody wants to get into a pissing contest at midfield over stupid stuff, but whatever. Molloy just says, you know what? I'm not dealing with this guy. I'm going over here with the ball. And he plays the ball. Well, the referee stops play and tells the defender to back up. Now, here's the thing. Not only he has every right to take a free. There's two types of free kick. There's two types of restarts. There's a ceremonial restart and a quick restart. Not only opted to take the quick restart, which they had every right to do. The referee had not instructed Aaron Molloy hold the kick. It was only after Molloy restarted that he stopped play and told the dude to back up. Now, again, I probably would not have done that because this defender right here is not interfering with the play. Yes, if Molloy had tried to go towards the goal, that would have been an issue. But Molloy said, I'm not dealing with this guy. We're going that way. Nope, no problem. Quick restart. That's one of the benefits of the quick restart is that you don't have to deal with the dude that's sitting right in front of you. You can just go this way and go on down. So I don't even necessarily have a problem with the referee stopping play there. Preferred that he didn't. But if you're going to stop play there to back this dude up, you've got to give him the caution for delaying the restart. And he didn't do that. He just talked to him. And I totally understood Molloy's frustration there. Like I said, would not have stopped play after the taking of a quick free kick. But if I did, that defender's getting cautioned for delaying the restart of play. Because if I am having to stop a quick free kick, it's because I'm going to administer something and need to take notes on it, not just to chat with the guy. You can back the dude up and chat with him while play's going on. So those were like the three things in the first half that really stood out to me. I was also a little bit puzzled at how they arrived at 1 minute of stoppage time in the first half when you had a penalty and a big long chat from the referee to a player prior to the taking of a free kick. So I was a little bit puzzled by that. And I thought he had a much better second half, but again, a little bit frustrated with, you keep telling the keeper, poop, poop, let's go. Poop, poop, let's go. At some point, you got to do more than just poop, poop, let's go. Because once you've done that one too many times and then don't do anything when the keeper doesn't let's go, then the poop, poop, let's go means absolutely nothing. It's just, how many times can you tell somebody, oh, don't do that again. Don't do it, you, before they just realize that don't do that again means absolutely nothing, and they just keep doing it because they know you're not going to do anything about it. So that's where my frustration was with the refereeing. It wasn't like a shambolic or disaster, but there were just a lot of little things that really could have and should have been done better. And that's probably the most critical you're going to hear me get of referees on 901 FC games, short of, like I said, absolute disaster class. But that is going to do it for us here tonight. We're right about the 30-minute mark. I'm getting a little bit tired and cranky. It's 11 o'clock. I've got a long day at Mike Rose again tomorrow, so we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into that last one from Wednesday. That's already one of the most watched in the short time that we've been doing these on YouTube, so I really do appreciate that, everybody. Again, Lawrence Dockery, find me on Twitter at LDoc93, 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod, 901 Soccer on Facebook, Bluff City _media on Twitter, Bluff City Media on Facebook, and Bluff City Media on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as I do with every show, if there's anybody out there interested in sponsoring this show or any of the other shows we do for Bluff City Media, we do a lot of stuff. We've got Tiger football is going on right now. Tiger basketball is going to fire up soon. Grizzlies are going to fire up soon. We've got Showboats coverage. We've got Redbirds coverage. Like any sports in Memphis that are like the only thing we probably don't do is high school sports. That's probably the one thing we don't do here at Bluff City Media. And I'm sure at some point in time we'll get there. But if you have goods or services that you would like advertised, reach out to me, reach out on the 901 Soccer account, reach out to somebody at Bluff City Media. We would be more than happy to listen to you. But that is going to do it for us here tonight. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And I hope to see all of you down there for the home game next Saturday on the 16th against the Hartford Athletic.